Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Top 100 Games of All Time. This is Graham.
And this is Dean.
And this time, hopefully, my mic sounds better. I apologize for the previous two. We shoot these kind of back to back, so I didn't hear how bad the audio was until I was looking at the final video. So hopefully, this one is better. And this time we are doing games number 70 through 61. Now we're getting close to the good stuff. I mean, we did the
Didn't you
first.
say that last time?
No. I mean, we're getting even closer to the good stuff.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the
Okay.
previous 30 that we've done were questionable. We're getting into the okay games. When we hit 50, that's when my list takes off.
Oh, I gotta wait that long, huh?
I'm still waiting for yours to take off.
Eh, mine's like a little baby bird that just got knocked out of the nest. It's gonna take a while,
Yeah, it's malnourished, kind of
for
weak.
sure.
Yeah. Okay, so why don't we get right into it with our number 70. And again, as always, because I put these slides together, it just so happens that D comes before G. So when it alphabetizes it, it's always Dean before Graham. So Dean will always go first.
Oh, well, that's good to know. All right. So my number 70 is a game. It's a solo game only, and it is Hostage Negotiator. Hostage Negotiator by Van Ryder Games. I got into this game when it first came out. I don't know, it was about 2015, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Was it 2015? Yeah, I think it was. But for me, this is a game that I got purely because I knew it was going to be a solo only game, and it was a small box I could take with me on the road. Now, it has since grown to be not quite as small because they've had a couple expansions. They've got a bunch of different little abductor packs and stuff that came out with it. So it has grown. But in Hostage Negotiator, you are playing the role of a hostage negotiator. And it is one where you've got someone has taken some hostages. They got a little backstory. It kind of determines what's their what's their focal point, like what's going to set them off, how violent are they. So there's within the game there's different threat levels that you move up and down, and then you're trying to get the threat level low enough, but you're trying to earn enough trust through conversation points to get the negotiator, to get the hostage taker to release hostages. But you could fail miserably as well throughout the game. You could really tick them off, and they could kill a hostage. So it may not necessarily thematically be for everybody's taste, but if as long as you realize it's a game and you can take it for what it is, it shouldn't turn you off. It is a dice rolling game. It's hand management. You've got cards that you need to play. And there some of them are called conversation cards, some of them are called demand cards, but or threat and even terror cards. But you're going to roll dice, trying to again decrease the threat level and increase your conversation points. Your conversation points are what is going to allow you to buy more cards and put them into your hand. The more expensive the cards that you buy, like they could be one conversation point or three conversation points, the better the potential results could be. But no matter what, you are always going to be rolling dice for these cards. So this may not be a game for Graham, since he's notoriously so bad about dice rolling. But again, it's a great little solo game. It's always very rarely is it ever won early on. I mean, it's one where it usually comes down to the last, to the last minute. And I enjoy it. I haven't played so there's the Crime Wave expansion, and then there's the new one that was on Kickstarter, should be coming pretty soon. The Career, where you can kind of combine all three and play your career as a hostage negotiator. So looking forward to that. If you like solo games, if you like games where it's always going to be a tense dice throwing game, check out Hostage Negotiator by Van Ryder Games. My number 70.
Yeah, this is one that mainly because it's strictly a solo game, right? Like there is no two-player option,
Correct.
or yeah. This is
Not to
one
my
that
knowledge.
yeah, this is the one that I'm kind of interested in it after you've explained it, because you've talked about it a couple times, but with it being strictly a solo game, maybe I'll try yours one of these days.
That's
You know,
fine. Yeah. You
you,
can lock
you
yourself in the bathroom at a hotel and try
yeah.
it.
So you bring the game with you, and you can go sit in the corner while I play the game. If I have any
Not a
rules,
problem.
if I have any rules questions, I'll just yell at you in the corner.
Well, you can play it early one morning when you get up at the crack of dawn and I'm sleeping in because we stayed up late till midnight playing games.
Okay, so my number 70 is my first Splotter game. This
Hmm?
is a game called Roads and Boats. This is if you have the cover up here from Roads and Boats, and the art really doesn't get much better than that. It is a large, odd-shaped box that doesn't fit on any shelves, but it is a typical Splotter game in which there's very little randomness to no randomness, and it's all about how well you manage what you have. You start off with a little farm. You're going to be, raising animals and cutting down trees and converting the trees that you knock down will then be converted to wooden slats. And you are trying to build then new houses and get a boat on a river, which allows you to travel further to hopefully get to there's the gold mines. It's got terrible little chits. It's got terrible art. It's a big paper board. That's one of the reasons why I bought my big sheet of plexiglass, so I can place it on the board to kind of keep it down. Yeah, it is not the best components. It's an older Splotter game, but it's a lot of fun. But I do like some other Splotter games better, which they'll maybe appear later on. But if you enjoy Splotter games, or you want to try a Splotter game, Roads and Boats is actually pretty good. It kind of makes sense in what you're doing. They're all can be relatively punishing in terms of they're not punishing like random events or you roll a die and didn't get enough resources. They're punishing that if you didn't think through what you need to do, then it's your fault. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that in games. I like when I win or lose because of what I did personally, not any random events. And this is the one game, if you've ever heard us talk about this on the Four Corners when all four of us were doing it, I'm just saying, if you leave your geese out in the open and you don't monitor them, then someone on a boat can come by and just pick up your geese and say, "Oh, you're a lonely goose. Why don't you come with me?" And someone can steal your geese from out underneath you. So that is my number 70, Roads and Boats from Splotter.
All these years, I thought that saying was a euphemism for something else. I didn't realize it actually had a context for the game you played.
Yeah. I was on the boat, and B had left his geese just wandering the fields that were close enough to my boat that one just happened to jump in my boat.
Well, B does have a history with geese, so
yes, he does.
We'll just leave it at that. Yeah, that's a Splotter game I haven't played. I think I've only played one Splotter game, and that's Antiquity.
Right.
I don't know if Roads and Boats would be high on my list. I think I'd rather try The Great Zimbabwe or even Food Chain Magnate before Roads and Boats, but it's certainly a classic.
Yep.
All right, my number 69 is a game that Graeme, I believe, already talked about early on. Maybe I don't know if it was in the first set or the second set of games, but this is a coin game, and really for me, you can put them all together. But we're going to talk about Pendragon just once again, just briefly, because Graeme explained it in pretty good detail. But again, you could probably put all the coin games under this title. Pendragon for me is one that I enjoyed because I like the theme. I enjoyed our play of it. Like Graeme said, we played for probably 4 hours and didn't even realize it had been 4 hours. That's how fast it kind of went. A typical coin game, you are playing hopefully a full contingent of players. Most of them are going to play 4. There is one that plays only 2. You can play it with less than that and have bots in the game. Probably, for me, that's not optimal, but certainly a lot of people play them that way. The great thing about Pendragon is, like most coin games or all coin games, the factions are going to play different as far as what they need to win or how they're going to win, the strategies they're going to use, and the event cards in the game are tailored towards those strategies. Ultimately, to win is going to be the same. It's always going to be a take down the leader. Whoever's in front, some of you guys are going to have to make temporary alliances, take them down so someone else can pull forward. Then they're going to take that person down. And then they're going to take the next person down. Eventually, someone's going to probably sneak in with a win if you don't do that, because that's just how the game is. It's very subtle, and it can escalate quickly, but then you also generally can take that person down pretty quickly as well. If you play the full games, I think it's three epochs that you're going to play. And then, of course, those are going to bring out or change the game slightly as you enter into each one of those in those stages. Again, Graeme talked about it. I think if you, Dan and I, back when we were doing the podcast together, we did a whole episode, I believe, on Pendragon. So you can check that out as well if you want more information. But that is my number 69 Pendragon by GMT Games.
Yep. All I can say is good choice. It was already on my list because it's the my limited coin experience. I really enjoyed Pendragon. So my number 69 is a game called Brussels 1893. This is about buying and selling art. And this game is made up of a board that's kind of really split in two. You kind of have a worker placement area, and you have a shop placement area. And the shop placement area is really intriguing because you, at the beginning of every round, you're going to be getting these two sticks or two markers, and it's going to give you a square, like A4, for example. And who's ever in the first player gets to decide which square you're going to be using. So if you imagine like a large grid and it's A4, you can either do the top right hand corner or the bottom left corner, and they're going to be varying sizes. So depending on how you want to do your strategy, you could be, I want to have it a slightly smaller thing. So that person can select, okay, we're going to be playing in this area, which is the only place you can place your shops. And you're going to be placing things like the art dealers. You're going to be selling off to different people. And if you can use your own shops to sell, or you can use your opponents. And on the left side of the board is, again, there's another little grid which has the cost for the different how much you're going to be selling your different types of paintings for. And it's this little moving square that kind of moves out. So you were trying to make sure that when you sell, it's at the right spot, but you can hopefully move it so the other person's going to be selling theirs for really cheap. You're going to be influencing patrons who are going to be giving you special abilities, but they usually they will force you to spend money at the end of the round, basically to keep them that way. You can go to the different government buildings. Again, that's the worker placement piece. So it's not an overly complex game, but there are quite a number of things that are going on. You're trying to get paintings and sell the paintings at the right time to the right shops and get your shops in the right area so people will come and visit your shops. So this is a game that actually sat on my shelf for the longest time, which I hadn't played when I first bought it. When I started playing it, I want to say just over a year ago, I really enjoyed it and I've played it multiple times since. So that's why it's my number 69. There is a new version, which I have not played, which is Brussels, I forget what the 1903 or something like that. I forget what the new one is. But my number 69 is Brussels 1893.
Yeah, I do remember seeing the new one recently. I haven't picked it up. The one you're talking about, the 1898, is still, is it 1898 or 1893?
93.
Would you? Yeah, it's still in shrink, sitting on my shelf. But I did buy it because it looked very interesting. So yeah, I'll have to give it a try based off your recommendation. So, all right, my number 68 is a game that I'm sitting here trying to decipher what I wrote down on my note here. My number 68 is Age of Steam. Age of Steam is kind of a classic in the railroading genre, and yes, there's kind of the big two, I guess, 18XX, Age of Steam, and then you've got Steam and even Railways of the World, although they all play very differently. So it's pick up and deliver, it's route building, and of course there's the auction in the game as well, or the bidding aspect of it. And this game all really centers around money and how much money do you think you're going to need, and knowing when to take money but not take too much money as far as the shares, issuing the shares, because that can make you or break you in this game. And I'm laughing because I'm trying to read a note here that says, so I have, how much money do you need? And then my other note says, how shares do you is, yeah, so I must have been making this very late at night or trying to trying to shorten it. I have no idea what this says. Maybe how many shares do you give? Whatever. Anyways, it's not the point. It's money. It's money in this game. It's shares, and it's managing that so that you can build your routes, deliver your goods. But the other thing I like about it is that you do have that auction for the turn order, and it's between the shares and that. I mean that's the crux of the game. And then of course you can always make the choices as far as what you want to do. As far as like, do you want to be the first builder? Do you want to be the first person to move to put tracks out on the board? Do you want to upgrade your engineer and stuff like that, or do you want to urbanize? So there's lots of things going on in the game. The game itself is not really that hard as far as the mechanisms, but it's the strategy involved. It's the for some it'll be the math of I need this amount of money. I don't want too much because then I'm going to be penalized, but I don't want to short myself either. So that whole auction shares aspect of the game to me is just fascinating. So that is my number 68, Age of Steam.
That's a good choice. I don't think I've ever stared at a board as long as the last game we played of Age of Steam.
Hmm.
And you're right. It is thinking of how many loans can I get away with? What's the minimum amount of money I could take a loan for so that I can do what I want to do and still be ahead at the end of the round. So I want to be able to make more money than I have to pay at the end of the round. And you were thinking, okay, well, if Dean goes here or Eric goes here or Mary goes there, then you are trying to figure out that if I need to do that first, then how much do I need now for turn order so I can be sure that I'm the first person that's going to be let's say delivering a cube, for example. So like Dean said, it's not an overly difficult game to play. It's a hard game to play well.
Yeah, and the great thing about it is there's so many maps for Age of Steam, and they all play differently. Some of the some of the maps bring on new concepts or mechanisms. Some of the maps are a little more simple, but it's definitely not. I mean, if you play the same map over and over again, yes, I can see where maybe it gets a little dry. But there's so much replayability in this game because of all the different maps and of all the little nuances that each one brings in. So yeah, Age of Steam.
So my number 68 is a relatively new game called Coloma. This game actually just came out at Essen last year, and it was actually on my Essen list, mainly for the mechanism called boom or bust. And that's one of the reasons why this is on my list. Whether it's going to stay on my list, year after year, I'm not sure, because I do enjoy the game. It's a pretty, I wouldn't exactly say generic game, but it's set in the Old West, and you are in a new mining town, for example. And it's got this mechanism where everybody's going to be picking where they want to go secretly. And there's a little circle in the middle of the table which has all your different options that you can go. And every round, there's going to be one option that's going to be turned off. So then when everybody's ready, you reveal and you put your meeples on which action you want to do. And whichever action has the most people putting their meeples on is bust. And you can still do the action, but it's a lesser version of the action. So you get to... It's trying to outthink what other people are doing, which is one of the things I always enjoy about gaming. Thinking, okay, well, I need to get resources, or I need to send my people to defend the town, because at the end of each round, there's going to be people attacking the town, and you need to be able to defend it. And of course, if you are the person that defends it most, you get a bonus. If you don't defend it at all, then you usually get a penalty. So I want to do that, but I also realize Dean will want to do that because he has no people there. So is he going to take that action this round, or should I take it this round? What's he going to do? You're trying to build up buildings. You're trying to get out bridges to kind of advance your little. You also have a little cart on a little map, or I guess wagon, that you're sending to different areas. And when you go to different areas, you can set up camps for area majority at the end of the game, which is one part to it. But there's kind of a lot of standard Euro mechanisms in this game, but that whole boom or bust thing, trying to outthink the other players to make sure that you are going to get the full action that you want to take and not a stunted action because it's gone into bust. If you like Old West, this one actually does the theme quite well. But it is a fun little enjoyable game, and it's got a gimmick that Dean and I talked about, and that's the magnetic wheel. It's got a magnet built into the board, and the wheel it's a 2-part wheel. It's got magnets in it, and you can just throw it towards the wheel and it automatically clicks into place, and it just rotates. It's a very little thing, but it enjoyed me nonetheless. That's my number 68, Coloma.
Yeah, so that came out last year, and I think I said at the very beginning. So as far as games that came out in 2019, I didn't play a bunch of games that were new in 2019. So I'm trying to play catch up, and Coloma is one that I still need to play. I do own it, and I got it primarily because of the description of that bust, boomer bust mechanism. So hopefully it's more than that, and it doesn't dry or doesn't get boring too soon. But yeah, we'll see. That's probably a good choice.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So my number 67 is a game that is also kind of a recent game. It did come out in 2019, and it's one that I talked about on one of the episodes, but it's called Colors of Paris. Colors of Paris is obviously a lot lighter than the last one, Age of Steam. Colors of Paris is about 2.35, plays 2 to 4 players, and plays in about an hour at the most. But you're a painter in Paris, and you're joining a competition to become the, I forget it put the title in there, and I'm sure it was a precise title as far as a painting competition in Paris. But that's what you're doing. You're trying to win this competition, and it's a very simple worker placement game, but it has a rondelle in it. And I got it primarily because it has a rondelle and because it is a simple worker placement game with some set collection in it. Because I wanted to introduce the concept of the rondelle to my wife to then maybe go up a few notches somewhere down the road. In this game, you're either increasing the efficiency of your um, painting ability, you're increasing your efficiency of your paint tubes, and you're increasing your efficiency of mixing colors together to make new colors because you're going to need different colors to complete the different paintings. The and that's basically it. But you're going to use the rondelle to select those actions. You can select, the ones where you can increase your abilities. You can select the actions where you can actually paint. You can select the actions where you can mix stuff together. It's simple in what it's doing, but the rondelle is interesting because um, so when you place your workers out, you're going to start, I think, with 2 workers, but I believe you can get an extra one or two as the game goes on. Um, yeah, you can as you increase your efficiencies. Um, but as you place your workers out on the rondelle, at the end of every turn, most games you're like taking your workers back off. You have to leave one of your workers out there taking up a space on the rondelle. So you're going to lock down a position. Maybe that's good, maybe it's bad. And what your opponent can do, say you're in a spot that maybe they want, um, they can take a spot on the wheel, which will allow them the ability to manipulate how far it's going to spin. Typically, at the end of a turn, it's going to spin one place. They can take an action where they can either not spin it at all, not rotate it at all, or they can rotate it 2 spaces. So even though you left a person on there to lock down a space, if they took that action, they could hurt you because you could end up in a space that you don't want to be in. So I thought it was really interesting. I mean, there's an ability to mimic the other person's last action. There's an ability to steal first player, which of course in a Euro game you want to be first player as much as possible. So there's different stuff going on, and then of course there's some spaces get locked out depending on where the wheel is turned. So not everything is always going to be available. I really enjoyed it. My wife Amy, she grasped the concept extremely fast, and she grasped the concept of locking me out of spaces that I needed, stealing my actions, or stealing the first player marker. So she did win the game, but it is what it is. She enjoyed it, and that was the most important thing. So that is Colors of Paris by Super Meeple.
I've never played Colors of Paris. This is a relatively new game, isn't it? The 2019.
Yeah, it came out last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know much about it, but you said rondelle. I'm intrigued. So I do like a good rondelle. And this isn't by Max Gertz, which confuses me if it's got a rondelle in
it. Right. Yeah. Other people are allowed to use that concept, that mechanism.
Yeah. So my number 67 is, Dean was saying Colors of Paris is pretty light. Mine is a heavier game called Anachrony.
Yeah,
This is a game that I got, I wouldn't exactly say by accident, but it appeared on my local game store shelf, and it was the new release that day. Went and picked it up, and then everybody was talking about Anachrony. I'm like, oh, I guess I better try this then. And I played it the first time, and I wasn't overly taken with the first time. But it was one of those games when I played it and kind of went, oh, I'm not sure I like that. Then I got thinking like the next day going, oh, maybe I should have done that better. Oh, maybe, next time I play, I'm going to take this strategy because I don't think I played it correctly. And then I got to thinking more and more about it. And I got to play it several more times since then, and it has really grown on me. It is a time-traveling game where you borrow resources from your future self, and you have to pay them back. So you borrow stuff, and it's on a time track. And when your current marker gets to when you borrowed stuff, you have to have paid it back so that you had something to give yourself back in the previous, in the previous timeline. If you go past that, you've created I believe they call it a paradox. I think it's a paradox where you didn't pay it back. So you're now in this kind of weird timey-wimey thing, and you have to be drawing cards for each one of these paradoxes that you have until you've corrected the paradox. You also have workers, and you have different styles of workers. So that you have scientists that can do this better, engineers that can do this better, and there's some things that you need mech suits for, and that's one of the expansions I'm sure Dean has that I don't have, which is all the little fancy little minis.
Maybe.
That allows you to show that you guys actually in a mech because you have the little mech suit. But the point of the game is Earth, I believe it's Earth, is going towards a catastrophe. And you know it's coming, you know kind of when it's going to happen. So you were trying to build up your resources so that when it does happen, you can get your people off the planet to someplace safe. That last part of the game is I found it significantly smaller than the first part of the game, but that's the idea, is you're trying to get resources. And of course, your people get tired, and I believe there's a water thing you can spray on your people to kind of bring them back to life. Water is a precious resource in the game. And like I said, you are trying to manipulate this time track so everything happens. And if you get paradoxes and you fail the paradox, I believe it's a die roll, or is it a card flip? But one of those, it's been a little while since I've played. Something bad's going to happen to you. Or you can go through the entire game with paradoxes and... Paradoxes? Paradise? I'm not sure what...
Paradise? I don't know.
You can go through and never have anything bad happen to you. And the other people like myself will curse you for that, because as soon as I get one, something bad happens to me. So... the time travel is an aspect of the game, but like all time travel games, it really doesn't feel like a real time traveling game. But I do like that concept of borrowing from your future self, and if you don't pay yourself back in time to give yourself in the first place, then you arrive into this time when you can negative things can happen. And the whole differentiated workers being able to do different things is also interesting. It is there's a lot to this game. It's not something you're just going to sit down and open up the box and read the rules and you'll be playing in 5 minutes. There is a lot to go through. It could probably, like a lot of other Mind Clash games, could probably have used some tightening to it, maybe cutting some stuff out, but it's still a very enjoyable game. That is my number 67, Anachrony.
So you said it's not a game where you can just sit down real quick and be playing in 5 minutes. So is that the reason that I've brought this game with me twice to ModCons and it's never been played?
I think it's the learning. Honestly, it's the learning curve. That I would have to sit down and reread the rules, and the rules are a hefty thing to go through, because there is a lot to pick apart. Of this person can do this in this situation. You have to pay this, and this is how you get more water. This is how you can when your workers are done for the day, you can either put them in have a normal rest or a short rest, but the short rest is not going to make them feel good, so you got to supplement it with this. There's a lot of things to unpack that it's just never been conducive to me teaching you.
Okay. Well, whatever. I mean, you could get up an hour or two early and get it read if you really wanted to teach it.
But that's my hostage negotiator time.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, it's I love Mind Clash games, and this is definitely one that I've had. I want to play it, but I'm not going to probably sit and read the rules myself for it. So it's definitely one I'm going to have to learn at a con, or maybe roofie somebody else and then have them do it. So, all right, good choice. What was that? Your 60. Okay, my number 66 is a game that Graeme talked about as well. Not this one, but a previous segment. And it is a light game. It's a party game. It is called Just One. Just One. Graeme alluded would probably be higher on my list, and it definitely is. This is a game that, even though it came out in 2018, I think. Once I was able to get a copy, it's gotten a lot of plays, and it goes over well every time. I know we say that a lot, and maybe that's a cliche, but I would have a hard time imagining that you wouldn't have a good time playing this game, being able to introduce it to people. It's such a simple concept. You're playing as a team. It's a pure co-op, and you are trying to get a high enough score to be more successes than failures. Let's put it that way. I think you get 13 cards to start the game, and you are trying to solve the basically figure out what the clue is. So one person is going to be the guesser. Everyone else is going to give a clue. They're going to write that single word clue, just one word, down on the little dry erase board, and then they're going to show them to each other. If I pick the same word as Graham picks, it's going to nullify our answers, and the guesser will not be able to see either one. And so you may have 6 clues out in front of you. You may only have 3 clues. And it doesn't really matter how many you have, it's how good the clue is. Because with 6 clues, you could have things all over the board that are just confusing. 3, if they're really good, is probably going to be more than enough to do it. So even if people get eliminated or get their clues eliminated for that round, it's not the end of the world. The only thing, actually, it's not a bad thing. The thing I find more humorous in this game is where I complain about it in code names is the generation gaps. In this game, it's a little more humorous because some of the stuff that people are flipping over, like when my daughter plays, I mean, she's almost 17. I mean, she's writing stuff. I'm like, I don't even know what that means. What is, what is that? Well, what is that in reference? And then at the end, they explain. I'm like, oh, okay. How did you think I would, I would know how that ties into, whatever. So it's a fun game. Played it with young, old, play it with my wife's family. Again, and they enjoy party games and other games. But yeah, Just One by Repost Productions. I think you can find it in the big box stores even as not expensive, even though it has the 6 little dry erase plastic boards in there and markers. I still want to say it's under $25. So check it out. Just One. My number 66.
Yep, good choice. That was on my list previously. So good pick. So my number 66 is a small little 2-player game only, and it's a game that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I knew nothing about it when I picked it up and played it and went, wow, I really enjoy this. This is a game called Stellar, put out by Renegade Game Studios. It is a table hog for just a 2-player game. It's a simple card game. Takes about half an hour, 40 minutes to play. But you have a pyramid of cards that actually make up someone looking through a telescope. So you got 1 card on the on the top, and then 2, and then I think it's 3, etc., all the way down to your bottom. And they are different zones. So you have your top zone, middle zone, and bottom zone. And what you're going to be doing is you are looking up into the sky. The theme is you're looking up to the sky to categorize the different things you see. Asteroids, planets, what else they have? Stellar masses, black holes, things like that. And you have a hand of cards, and there's a card row. And on your turn, you're going to pick a card. Or play a card, and all the cards are going to be numbered on there. And there's two spaces on your board. You have the triangle, which is what you see. Then you have what's called your notebook. At the end of the game, you're going to be scoring the number of your largest consecutive run of cards for, let's say, black holes. So let's say I have 1, 2, 4, 5. So my longest run is 2, either the 1, 2 or the 4 and 5. Then I'm going to look at my black holes that I have in my observation area and do the multiplication. If I have this many black holes from this type of run, I get that many points. But on your turn, you're going to be playing a card into one of those 2 areas out of your hand, either the observation or your notebook. Let's say I play black hole 4 into my notebook. Because I played a 4, I have to take the 4 card from the card row and play that into my observation area. So it is a matter of, so the first thing you can do is you can take a card and add it to your hand, and then play a card from your hand, and then play a card from the card row. So quite often you're looking at the card row going, I want to get that black hole into my observation, and it's card number 3, for example. So what card do I need to play from my hand to allow me to take that 3 from the card row so I can place it into the other area? A lot of thinking like that. I love that concept of what card I play dictates what card I'm going to take from the card row, and I'm going to play it, and it's always going to be the opposite area that I just played. So if I play into my notebook, I have to play the card row card into the observation area, and if or vice versa. Of course, when you're playing into the observation area, you have to make sure that all your black holes are grouped together. So you're going to have one group of black holes for the entire game. You can't start a black hole in the bottom left and put another one at the top of your pyramid, for example. There's a lot of planning, it can lead to some analysis paralysis when you're trying to figure out how do I get the cards I need in the right area. especially near the end of the game when you're trying to make sure that you're getting the right cards to put a group. Because if you try and place a card into your observation area that doesn't fit, so in other words, if you've blocked off all of your planets and you have to play a planet, you have to play it face down, which is not going to be good. At the end of the game, you're going to be scoring majorities. Like I said, you're going to go through that notebook, multiply by your observations. You're also going to be looking at the top, middle, and bottom, figure out who has the highest point value for those areas, and you're going to be scoring bonus points. And then if you have one card of each type in your observation, you're also going to get a bonus. It is a fairly simple game to explain the rules for, very simple game to play, but I love that mechanism of whatever card I play, I have to take that card from the card draw and play that card as well. And trying to figure that the optimal strategy for that is a whole lot of fun. That's why my number 66 is Stellar.
Yeah, I don't know. You've talked about this game twice now, and both times I have a really hard time conceptualizing what it looks like or how it plays based off of the description. It seems simple enough, but I don't know. For me, I think there's a disconnect with being able to see how it plays. I would try it, but I would say thematically and mechanically, I'm not sure it's going to be a hit with me. But hey, you like it, so it's good that it's on your list.
Thank you.
I'll let you have that one. All right, so my number 65 is a game that Graeme has talked about probably more so than I have, and I don't think it's been on your list yet. Maybe it will, maybe it won't be. I don't know. But that is Barbarians: The Invasion, and this is by Tabula Games. Came out, I think, in 2018, and just had another recent Kickstarter for a second edition of it. It sounds like like an Ameritrash game. This is a straight up Euro game. Make no mistake about it. Yes, it has some minis in it, but this is a Euro game. There's no dice in this game. It is not a dice chucker by any means. This is a worker placement, action selection style game. Some hand management in it. But you are trying to build up your barbarian clan, trying to build up your civilization. And the main focal point of this game is a 3D, three-tiered volcano. If you played Noria, think of it kind of like as that. I call it like a cupcake tier. You're going to place your workers on the top level, and then you can place a worker on the second level and third level. But this one is the way it's set up is that at the top level, if you drop down the worker to the next level, it's got to go. It really only has two choices because the way it's divided up. So each one, then the next level is going to give you two more choices. You can manipulate the volcano a little bit, but pretty much it's going to turn. I think at the end of each round, it'll rotate on its own, anyways. But you are choosing to collect resources, or you're choosing to upgrade your knowledge. And there's a couple different kind of knowledge tracks. You can upgrade your knowledge for seafaring and resource gathering. But the most important one is probably upgrading your knowledge for your tactics, because on another sideboard, there's a little map or a map of like 5 or 6 different territories. And this is where your barbarians are going to go out and they're going to expand their territory, take on basically generic tribes. You're not fighting other opponents. You're fighting generic tribes out there on that map. But you need to upgrade your knowledge of tactics against each of those individual tribes, which will make your chances of defeating them better. So when you go into battle, if you don't do any upgrading at all, you're going to have to flip 6 cards to fight a tribe. It's going to be extremely difficult to win all 6 cards. And you need to win, I think, at least half of however many cards you flip in order to be successful. But as you increase your knowledge, you're going to reduce the number of cards that you have to flip each time, which is going to vastly improve your odds. And besides upgrading your tactics against each tribe, you're also upgrading your different types of soldiers, because each tribe kind of what they're going to have as far as what soldiers you're going to need. So before you go into battle, you purchase the type of soldiers that you want. There's a lot of stuff going on in this game. There's god cards. There's war chief cards. There's just, and the art is beautiful. I think the art is extremely well done for this game. It is a Euro game. It is 100% a Euro. If you like, I don't know if it was inspired by Blood Rage. I mean, I think there's more going on in this game than Blood Rage, but there's not the direct interaction, the direct conflict between your opponents either. You're focusing on generic tribes, not each other. But you're still getting in each other's faces on that rondelle, kind of taking the spaces that someone else may want. And then, of course, as you're attacking on that sideboard, once someone takes over that territory, then you can't take it over, but you can only attack into adjacent territories that you're already in. So there, it does make it difficult. You definitely don't want to be the last person to go out there attacking. But anyways, Graeme could probably explain it better because he's played it more because he has a copy and I don't for some reason. But anyways, that's my number, what, 65, Barbarians, the Invasion.
Yep, this is a good choice. There's so many good games. This did not make my top 100 games, but it's a really fun game. The second edition they're coming out with, the only thing that really changes is they've lightened up the board. That was one of my big complaints is the board has great art, but it's really dark art. And if you're and it's a takes up a large footprint.
That's
so
for sure.
If you're sitting on the opposite table, you can't see the stuff on the opposite side of the board because it's so dark. But yeah, it is. I mean, Dean had mentioned Blood Rage. This is the same idea of barbarians, in the Norse mythology and all that, but taken up to the Euro extreme because it really is a good, solid Euro game. The cover doesn't look like it. Cover makes it look like it's a dude on the map. This is a good, solid Euro game. So, although it's not on my list, I will definitely say that's a very good choice.
Yeah, because it's a 3.5 on BGG for weight, so it's definitely not it's definitely not a lighthearted Amerithrash.
Yeah. So my number 65 is Dean talked about a party game. This is my party game for this list. This is Time's Up. I put Title Recall on here because that's the version I have, although I'm actually coming to enjoy the regular Time's Up as well. Time's Up is played, you have 40 cards that are split amongst groups. You can either play, one group versus another group, or you can kind of split up. So I like it 3 against 3, so groups of 3, and you are giving clues. So it's played over 3 rounds. You deal out the 40 cards, everybody looks at the cards, and so everybody knows a few cards in that deck. Put the cards back, shuffle them all up, starting with the first player. They are going to take the first card, and it's split to 3 rounds. The first round is you can basically say as many clues as you want. You can say, this is the guy that was in that movie with that woman who did this thing. And you have 30 seconds to try and get as many of these as you want. Then it goes to the next player, and they will, if one of your people gets it right, you put it aside. And the first round, you can say whatever you want, but you only get one guess and there's no passing. Once this has gone around and everybody's guessed all the cards, you kind of tally up the points, and that's round 1. Round 2 is you're only allowed to give 1-word clues. So hopefully in the first round, you will have come up with something that makes people think of that clue. Then again, 30 seconds, 1-word clue. I don't believe there's any passing the second round either. But do that again, tally up the points. The third round is just miming, just charades. And you're trying to get people to guess, and it's the same group of 40 cards that are going through each round. So hopefully you build up the knowledge of these cards that when you give a clue, especially a charades clue, no words, you're allowed to sound effects and kind of hand motions, that they will be able to piece that together to know what you mean. Quite often this has resulted in some hilarious misknowing of things. And then it's just kind of this running gag that goes through the entire round. The title recall has to do with movies, books, and television shows. So like the titles of those, the original Time's Up is just, could be historical figures, it could be time periods, it could be countries, whatever you want. That one I find more difficult, but actually the more difficult they are, quite often that's the funniest moments that you get because you don't know what it is, so you're trying to sound it out. It sounds like the character from, the Flintstones, that type of thing. And then, of course, the Flintstones could be then the thing that kind of goes off that makes people think of that original clue or the original answer, but it may not be connected to the Flintstones at all. this has always resulted in lots of fun. And this is one that I would say that this has taken me. I've taught this to an awful lot of people. This one is not as easy to teach as just one. This is a little more. There's a little more going on because a lot of people get confused over. Wait, so second round we're doing the same thing? It's like, yes, trust me, it will be fun, and it's always gone over well. This is my number 65. Time's up.
Yeah, this is not one that I would probably try with my in-laws, because it is group dependent. I mean, if you have people that are afraid of kind of coming out of their shell, they may not enjoy this game. But you enjoy the game, and you're pretty reserved, compared to most. So it just depends. I mean, maybe this is a thing that gets people to become a social butterfly. But um, now, do you want to? Should you do your clue for Lindsay Lohan? Do you want to?
No, we'll skip that for the pod for the video shot. I will
Okay.
say that I have played Title Recall, my version, so much with the same group that we actually created our own list of 100 cards that we made up because we'd been through all the cards and all. I mean, you get a big block of cards. There are two sides to them, so you get two clues per card. We'd been through all of them, and we'd kind of gone through all of the. We could play the game and you give one word clues at the beginning because we'd played it so often. We knew what the clues were, so we came up with some new ones because we'd played this so often. So this has always been a big hit with my group.
Yeah, and definitely a game that once again you have those generation gaps that can be quite entertaining at times when people don't know who Billy Joel is. I mean, it's entertaining but yet sad at the same time.
Yeah.
So, all right, that is an excellent choice. I would have thought maybe it would have been a little higher on your list, but I guess we'll take it. At least it's on your list. So my number 64 is an extremely light game. It is I wouldn't consider it a party game because it does. I mean, it's not really designed for that, but it is a roll and write. I don't know if it's the original roll and write, but it's definitely one of the earlier roll and writes. Came out in 2012, and it's put out by Game Right, and that's called Quicks. Quicks plays 2 to 5 players, plays very fast, about 15, 20 minutes, and in this game, you're each going to have your own little scoring sheet, and it's very simple. There are 2 white dice and I think 4 colored dice for a total of 6. Each turn, there's going to be an active roller. The active roller is going to roll all the dice, and the active roller is going to decide or is going to have to pick one of the colored dice and pair it up with one of the white dice, sum those two numbers together, and then mark off a number on his sheet. You say, wait a minute, what are you doing? Marking off numbers? Yes, you're marking off numbers because on your sheet, you're going to have 2 rows of numbers that go from 2 to 12 in ascending order, and you're going to have 2 rows that go from 12 to 2 in descending order. And I think I don't know, there's red, yellow, blue, and or green and purple, maybe, I think. Um, and so you are marking off numbers from left to right, typical roll and write. You got to mark them off from left to right. You cannot go backwards. So if you leave, if the first one you mark off is a 6, well, you're eliminating half of your numbers that you can then mark off. So you want to try to go in as close of an order as you can, but you're not always going to be able to do that because it's the luck of the dice rolls as well. If you can ever get to the very end and mark off the last number, whether it's a 12 or a 2, and as long as you have at least 5 numbers marked off to the left of that, you can then uh, mark it off and lock it down. If there's ever any 2 rows that are locked down, then the game is over. But the active player, again, marking off those numbers, they're going to take a colored die, a white die, they're going to sum them together, they're going to choose what number to mark off. Everyone else, though, if they're not the active player, can still participate because what they're going to do is they're going to look at the sum of the 2 white die and they're going to decide if they want to use that to mark off a number on any row on their paper. They can do that. They don't have to. It's an option. So if it's a bad one, maybe they don't want the number. Maybe it's a number they've already marked off. They don't have to play it. The active player can choose to pass if they can't fill in a spot, and I think you can pass up to 4 times. And if anyone ever passes up to 4 times, then that also triggers the end of the game. Extremely simple, always fun, plays fast, and it's one of those where you're always complaining that no one ever rolls the number that you need, and then of course your dice are always benefiting everybody else. It seems like, and never yourself. But yeah, quick game. I guess that's why they call it quicks. But yeah, check it out, Game Right Games. You can find this at Target, Walmart, all of those big box stores as well.
Yeah, it's a good choice. I'm not going to say too much about it because it may appear higher on someone else's list.
Oh, is Lolo on the list?
So my number 64 is a game that I think might be on Dean's list later on. I know he enjoys this one. This is a game by Richard Launius. This is called Fate of the Elder Gods. And Fate of the Elder Gods has gorgeous production, and each player is responsible for a cult. So you're actually trying to call forth the Cthulhu old ones. And what you're trying to do, though, is you're trying to get the Cthulhu old ones out on your terms and make sure that all your other competing cults don't get the same benefits that you get when the great old ones come forth. I'm not sure. So you are going to be hopefully sending reporters to raid the other areas to kind of expose them and reduce their numbers. But the game is a not worker placement, action selection type game. So you have a big Cthulhu statue which is going to be on an action. And on your turn, you are going to be playing a card, which is where you want Cthulhu to go to. Right? Or is it the card? You play the card where he is or where he's going to? I can't remember which one it is. Anyway, you're going to be moving Cthulhu to another location and taking that action there. And the actions are going to be very simple. You're going to be, drawing cards out of a book, or putting more cultists out in your area, or, moving cultists around to the different areas. One of the things I really liked about this game is sometimes you can be not exactly cursed, but you can have stuff that happens that would cause the person to your left to draw a card for you. And those cards could be when this person takes this action, or if he gets raided by the reporters, then this card will trigger, or if he tries to cast a spell, this will trigger. Usually something bad, but you as the active player don't know what card that person is holding on your behalf. So you're like, I cast this spell, and you kind of look at the person, have I triggered that event from the card? And those cards are permanent. Until they're triggered, they stay active. It's a lot of fun. This is a game one of the first times I played it was at a con, at Grand Con, and it was a whole lot of fun because I got down to I was just about to win because you were trying to manipulate your track. I was just about to win, and I said, okay, I cast this spell, and the guy next to me is like, bam, this happens to you, and bam, this happens to you, and bam. It's like, okay, well, I guess I'm not winning anymore. But it was, there is more randomness in this game than I would normally like, but it's just so well done, and I love that aspect of those extra cards of you don't know when they're going to trigger. Maybe they never trigger. Who knows? But trying to manipulate your track, trying to get the other cults raided so that you can be the one cult that calls forth Cthulhu. So really enjoyable game. This is Fate of the Elder Gods, my number 64.
Yeah, that is a great choice. It probably would appear later on my list, but yeah, area control or area majority style game with a lot of in your face trying to screw over someone else. So I won't belabor the point, but yeah, Fate of the Elder Gods, awesome. All right, my number 62 is a old game.
Nope,
I mean old.
63.
I'm sorry, my number 63 it's still an old game. Came out in 2008. I don't know what point in time in gaming you can call stuff a classic, but I'd say Pandemic is probably considered a classic at this point in time. Pandemic, put out by Z-Man Games, fairly light. I mean, it's a medium weight game. It plays 2 to 4 players, at least in the base game. And this, I'm sure people have heard of. If you haven't, then you need to stop and go out and buy this game now, because in this game you are trying to work together to stop the spread of disease and the pandemic. Each player in this game is going to have a specific character or role that they're going to take on, which is going to give them a special ability. You have the dispatcher, you have the researcher, and all that kind of stuff. It is. I mean, I know people probably now with Pandemic Legacy probably don't play the base game very much. I play the base game a ton online just because that's what's available. And I can sit down, I can play a solo game, with 3 or 4 different characters and knock them out. I still just enjoy the base game. I've never played the Legacy game, so I'm sure I would enjoy those too. But the base game, have played with the family, have played with other people, play it online. Still gets to the table a lot, and yeah, I mean, you're trying to stop the spread, and you always want to do more than you can, or you can't quite get there, and you're one space short, or you need one more card to have five to end the pandemic. And then some people always want to try to eradicate it. It's like, well, it's not necessarily, we don't necessarily need to do that. But then there are other times where it's the luck of the draw, and the card that just came out during the night phase. Comes back during the pandemic, or maybe the ones that came out during the pandemic come back out immediately and spread it again. And there's always that chain effect that is just devastating. But yeah, pandemic, my number 63, a classic.
It is. This is one of Lola's favorite games as well. We have all the expansions for the base game, and we have Pandemic Season 1 and Season 2. So it's not on my list because I am not a huge co-op fan. But it's,
I was going to say you're not a huge team player.
Same type of thing. But it's funny because it kind of syncs up because I think my only co-op game is my number 63.
Mm.
And this is called Flashpoint Fire Rescue. This is an older one from Indie Boards and Games. They've merged now. I'm not sure what the name of the new company is. This is when we got Pandemic. The four of us used to play with Megan and BM, my wife Lella, and we enjoyed Pandemic. So we decided to try another co-op game. So we've got Flashpoint, and Flashpoint I think was probably played more than Pandemic was. Flashpoint Fire Rescue is you are a group of firefighters. Each one has a special ability, and there's a house on fire, and you're trying to get into the house and rescue the people that are inside of it. There's people, there's pets, and at the end of each round, the fire is going to spread. So it is a real co-op game because some people's special abilities are to help the other players around the board. There's a guy that can give. I believe it's a man, he can give an extra action to someone else. So they lose an action, but they say, okay, Dean, you're running in and you're trying to rescue the cat. So I'm going to give you that one extra step so you do not get stuck in the fire. And the fire is going to spread every round. It first goes to smoke, and then it goes into flames. And the flames spread very quickly from where they are. We always wonder why people are smoking in the bathroom, because there's always a flashover in the bathroom where it's a whole, just like Pandemic, when you have so many cubes in a certain spot in Pandemic, and it kind of spreads out to everywhere else. The same thing with Flashpoint Fire Rescue. When there's a fire, you can have a flashover, and the fire can spread very quickly. Some of the options that you can play are a fire truck that goes around the outside. So you have to have someone in the fire truck that will drive it around, and they can shoot a water cannon and hopefully hit the fire, as opposed to hit the empty rooms where there's nothing happening there. There is a ambulance that if you play the more advanced, you have to get the ambulance to the right side of the building so you can get the people out. Sometimes your exits are blocked and you have to hack your way through the walls because now there's a big fire in front of the exit, and of course you can't go through fire. Like I said, very thematic game, one I thoroughly enjoyed, and we have a couple expansions for this one as well, just to kind of vary up the roles that you get, the areas. There's one that takes place on a ship, and a 2-story building, so you got to go up the stairs. I always like doing the fire truck and completely missing the house and spraying down the people next door. But yeah, one that haven't played in a while, but one I look on very fondly as a a good solid co-op game that if you like Pandemic, you want it to change up the theme. This feels very much like Pandemic, but it is its own game. And it's a theme that I actually enjoy more than Pandemic. So that is my number 63, Flashpoint Fire Rescue.
Yeah, no, this one gets talked about with pretty high regards. I've never played it. I don't own it. I have looked for it, and I don't know if it's just out of print or maybe it's just harder to find anymore. But yeah, I would definitely give it a whirl because I do like Pandemic and I do like co-ops. And you say you don't like co-ops, and you say this is your only one, but you did have 3 co-ops previously mentioned in your top 100 so far. So maybe you're more of a co-op player than you think.
All my co-ops are in the crappy half of the top 100.
Oh, okay. So you're saying they're crappy games? All
I'm
right,
saying, like I said at the beginning, until we reach 50, the first 50 games are just kind of throwaway. I mean, they're if you want to play them, fine, but
I don't know. I mean, Time's Up, Fate of the Elder Gods. I will challenge you to a duel over those two. Well, all right, good choice. My number 61 is
Six.
another game. I'm sorry, 62. Sorry. My number 62 is another game that has been out for quite some time. It's been out 10 years now, and it is Alien Frontiers. Alien Frontiers is a game that I don't actually know. It was a Kickstarter. It was one of the original Kickstarter
Yeah.
games, put out by Clever Mojo and Game Salute. I'm not sure who's producing it now. They put out a big box version of it not that long ago with every expansion, which is kind of nice. You don't have to track them down. But there's the base game, and you've got all these different factions that you can add as well. But this is a dice placement game. I don't think it was the original dice placement game, but it's certainly one of the earlier ones. And I love dice placement. Space, I don't necessarily care about, but this one makes space palatable for me because you're placing dice. You are trying to colonize a planet, and there's just one planet. I don't know what planet it is, but there's a planet in the center of the board. Everybody's trying to colonize it, and this planet's kind of divided up into 6 or 8 different sections. And each section, if you have the majority in that section, you gain a special ability for that section. Um, you can lose it. I mean, if someone comes in and, because if you're the first person in, you got one, you got majority. Next person comes in, they've got one. Now you don't have the majority, so you got to give the special action back. And your score is going to go up and down as well, because if you control a section, you gain a point. And if you lose, you got to lose a point. So there's the up and down on the score track, which is kind of annoying at certain times, but it is what it is. With the dice, you start with, I think, 3 dice. You can unlock, I think, another 3 dice. um, those are your ships basically, and you're rolling them, and you are putting combinations of your roll down on the board to either gather resources, build up your colony components to then where you can actually go down to the planet. You can get some artifact cards. You can raid your opponent and steal some of their resources. And it's typical. I mean, sometimes you need 3 of a kind. You might need a straight. You might need a high enough pair to do certain things. And then there's some ones for just single dice as well. I don't think it's dated per se, but there's probably some other games that have done more with dice since then. But if you add in the expansions, if you add in the different factions, which give each person a very special power, an asymmetrical feel to the game, it really it adds a lot to it. I've enjoyed the game. I haven't played it in forever, but it was one that when I first kind of crossed over into Euros, it was one that I really enjoyed a lot. So that is Alien Frontiers, my number 62.
Yeah, this is a game that I own, and I've only played it a couple times because every time I play it, I think, oh, I think I'd rather be playing Kingsburg. It's got
Mm.
very similar dice
But you
rolling.
don't. But you don't have the expansions. You don't have the factions and all that, do you?
That's true. Yeah, I just got the base game, Alien Frontiers, and that's one of the main reasons why it really never got played, because my gaming group, like the core gaming group, really liked Kingsburg. And it was like, well, do you
Mm.
want to replace Kingsburg with Alien Frontiers? And everybody's like, well, I kind of really like Kingsburg. So we always, if we wanted that style of game, we'd always gravitate towards Kingsburg. But that's, personal preference.
Yeah, I wonder if that's why I haven't played Kingsburg.
It could be.
Maybe.
So my number 62 is a game that came out 2019, I want to say. This is a game called Underwater Cities. This is I like cards and games, and this is essentially a card game. Everybody has their own little underwater city, and the theme is, you are trying to colonize the ocean floor to kind of grow food and basically make production underneath the city so you can transport it onto the land to help the land out. So you have a hand of cards, and there's actions around the main board. And I believe there's 3 colors of actions, and there's 3 colors of cards. And if you can if you want to take one of the actions, which you have to do every turn, you have to take one of the cards from your hand and play it in one of the action spots on the board that's empty. If you play the same color card as the action you want to take, you're going to be getting a stronger action or a bonus you can take. And you are trying to lay this stuff out so you can get resources, so you can get money, so you can build more power plants, more cities underneath the ocean. And around each city, you can put farms, you can put desalination units, so you can put, I forget what the third one is. And you are trying to build those up. You're trying to build the tracks in between your cities to hopefully get the tracks all the way out to the coastal cities, which are going to give you bonuses. it's a lot of fun, and that whole multi-use thing is, I want to use this red card for its ability, but I really want to take a red action. Do I play my red, the card I really want to play on the red action so I can take the action, but then, I can't do the card, or, which way do you want to do it? I love that decision. I love when you're having to make decisions on how you use a card. It's not just, I play this card for this action. It's, I'm giving up this action that's on the card so I can take the action on the board. Lots of fun. It is a fairly crunchy Euro. There's going to be production at the end of every round, I want to say. I think it's every round. There's several times that the production is going to happen. And of course, if you have one farm, it's going to produce, one kelp. But if you get two farms stacked on top of each other, then you gain a bonus for that. Lots of fun, lots of thinking, lots of planning of how you want to plan it, and making the decisions on those cards is my favorite part of Underwater Cities. You're going to see this a lot on my my top 100 games, these multi-use cards, which I absolutely love. This one's not as complex as some of the other ones, but one I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm looking forward to getting this one back to the table. This is Underwater Cities, my number 62.
Isn't this one kind of considered the, I don't know, let's say Terraforming Mars Light, or spiritual successor maybe to Terraforming Mars?
Yeah, there's definitely some similars that if you do enjoy Terraforming Mars, I would say definitely give Underwater Cities a try. You might like it because it is, that whole card combination thing is very similar, but this one really stands on its own. So it's not just a Terraforming Mars 2.0 or Terraforming Mars Under the Water. It is its own game, but you can definitely see some similarities between the two.
All right. Sounds cool. All right. My last one for this segment is my number 61. This is a game I don't believe Graeme really cares for. I don't even know if he's really played it. Came out in 2014, and that is Star Realms. Star Realms is I've only ever played a 2-player. You might be able to play it 4-player in teams. I don't know. I've never looked at it. But it is a deck building game. Pure and simple deck building, culling cards out of your hand at from the beginning of the game, some of the weaker cards, getting better cards in it. In this game, you're playing you're playing a combination of 4 factions. You don't have to specify or specialize in one particular faction. You probably want to have at least a couple factions because they all do something a little different. You have the blobs, and I think the yellow ones are maybe the Imperial Order. I'm not sure the exact name, but I always like playing the blob. The blob is cool. The blob are great for attacking. But you have the different factions, and one is better at trading, so on and so forth. But you are going to build up your deck through the trade row by buying new ships or bases into your deck and then playing them out. Your bases are going to be more for defense. Your ships are going to be more for attack or to generate more trade value, to get better stuff. But it's pure and simple, you're going against your opponent, trying to get their hit points or their authority, as I call them in Star Realms, down to 0. It is one where sometimes it's a slow build, and then all of a sudden it's like bam, 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 bam. It's like, 50 points, you're done. I've always enjoyed it because it plays fast. Nolan always enjoyed the game. I had it. I traded it away. I got it. I bought a new copy of it. I haven't really purchased anything past the very first expansions, whatever those 4 packs were, because I don't play it enough to need more stuff. Nolan likes what we have now because we don't play it as much anymore. And most of the stuff that I play now, I play it online. So I don't really need to go out and buy a whole lot. I think the artwork is really cool on it. I've enjoyed it. That is, if you want a good introductory kind of deck building face-to-face game, because a lot of deck builders last too long, this one's going to play fast. That's Star Realms by White Wizard Games.
Yeah, this is a game, when you mentioned playing online, I've only ever played it online.
Really?
I figured, because the app came out pretty soon after the game was released. So I figured I would try the app to see whether I liked the game, and I played the app several times. I don't know. This game just didn't do anything for me. Now, there is the Hero Realms, which is the same idea, but more fantasy. I don't know whether I enjoy that one anymore. I don't know. Maybe I didn't give this one not enough attempts. But my first couple plays kind of left me with, oh, it's fine. I don't feel any need to rush out and buy the game because what I've played of it, I thought, yeah, it's fun. It's just not something I want to continue playing.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like I said, I mean, I have the original, the base set, and the first couple of the expansion packs. And they don't. I mean, they add stuff to it, but they don't add a ton to it. I don't know all the new stuff they've added. Again, I'm basing it purely off of the early stuff, which for me was perfect because it was a very introductory level deck building game that played extremely fast. And with the four factions, to me that was enough. That it fit the need that Nolan and I had to be able to knock a game out in 20, 30 minutes. So
Yep. Okay, so my number 61 and the last one for this segment is an old game that was out of print for a while. It's now back in print. This is a game called The Pillars of the Earth. This one had been talked about. I'd heard about this one for many years, but it's out of print. It's out of print. Is it ever going to come back in print? Well, now it's back in print, and I can see why everybody talked about this. It's based on a book, but you need to know nothing about the book, even though I have read the book. I read the book many years before I actually played the game, but you don't have to have read the book to play the game. But it's about the building of a cathedral. And everybody's going to be participating in the building of the cathedral is kind of the timer of the game, that you actually have little wooden pieces that you kind of stack each round, and at the end you put the bell on top, and that's the end of the game. But it's a worker placement game that's got a mechanism that I don't think I've ever seen in another game. Everybody's workers go in a bag at the beginning of the round, and someone's going to be pulling one out, and they're going to pull out, and let's say it's Mary's. Mary can take an action right away with that worker, but it's going to cost her a whole bunch of coins. If she decides not to take an action, then it gets placed on this little board, and then that cost is kind of gone. So then he pulls out another one, and it could be Mary's again, could be Dean's, could be mine, whatever else. But the later you go in the round, the less expensive it is to use your worker. But if there's a spot you really want to go to, then maybe you do want to pay the extra gold to go first. So that first one Mary that pulled out for Mary, if she really needs to get wood, for example, then she may say, yes, I'm going to pay the full amount for it so I can place my worker on the wood spot so I'm blocking it from anybody else. I love the whole aspect of that, drawing the meeple, and that whoever meeple it is, that player gets to decide whether they want to use it, or do they say, you know what, I'll wait. I'll wait until hopefully the actions have become cheaper. Actually, I forget. If you pass, does it go back in the bag? I don't remember. Anyway, you can forego your action to hopefully have your meeple be pulled out later so that it's a cheaper amount, but then the prime spaces to go to may have already been taken. So it's this kind of push or pull of, do I spend the extra money to make sure I take the spot, or am I okay with taking a lesser spot for less money because my meeple will be pulled out later. The rest of the game is pretty much the standard Euro worker placement, getting resources to convert to something else, buying victory points that way. But that whole drawing of the meeples out of the bag is what set this one higher up on my list. So that is my number 61, Pillars of the Earth.
yeah, I know I've played it once. I think maybe I've played it twice, but it's been an extremely long time since I played it. I do have a copy of it, one of the older copies, but yeah, I don't remember exactly how that mechanism works as far as if you pass. But yeah, that's a good choice. I haven't played it in so long; it didn't even enter into my thought process.
Yeah. Okay, so that is our 70 through 61. So that wraps it up. I don't know what else to say. I mean, we're getting close to the good stuff. So we got one more top 10 to go through.
Keep telling them that. Yeah.
Before we get to the games that we were telling everybody should... Anything between 50 and 1, if you don't own it, you should be rushing out to the stores to buy it. 51 to 100, definitely try it at a con.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I agree with you, but sure. If you say so.
So that's going to be it for this time. So until next time, thanks for watching.
See you guys.